faithfully convey value, interpreting great books from around the world.
Hello, this is Sally's Book Club.
Today's book is an introductory guide to psychological counseling written in fairy tale style. Mr. Toad Goes to the Psychologist.
Who is Mr. Toad?
He's no ordinary toad, but a character from Britain's century-old classic fairy tale. That arrogant, fashionably dressed, adventure-loving toad who owns Toad Hall in The Wind in the Willows. If you're not familiar with him, let me briefly share his story. Mr. Toad grew up in a joyless family, with the strict, rigid father who demanded absolute obedience. Toad's mother was weak and ineffective. She never dared show affection toward Toad in his father's presence. His entire life was mapped out by his parents. Sent to boarding school at 7, forced into studying unwanted history at university, then pressured to inherit the stressful family business. Having never lived authentically, Toad lost himself after his father's death and mother's departure. He became obsessed with boating and caravan trips, then landed in jail for car theft. Later, he escaped prison disguised as a washerwoman and stole horses while swindling money. In short, confused, self-blaming, constantly messing up and facing friends' criticism, never knowing what he truly wanted. Finally, his emotional defenses crumbled, plunging him into depression. Many may see themselves in Toad, making choices against your will to please others, sometimes masking unhappiness behind forced smiles while claiming, "I'm fine," in public. If you habitually armor your true self, you might lose life's purpose like Toad, finding everything dull. In other words, you might be depressed. So what to do about depression? You can try self-healing or see a psychologist. Unable to heal alone, Book Toad visited a psychologist at friends' urging. Heron conducted 10 counseling sessions. Heron successfully helped Toad overcome depression and rediscover life's joy and purpose. Even without depression, Toad's therapeutic journey offers insights for inner healing. The author Robert DeBoard, a Cambridge graduate, is a renowned British psychologist, researcher, and psychotherapist. His childhood in Cornwall inspired Kenneth Graham's The Wind in the Willows. After 20-plus years in psychology, Robert wanted to demystify therapy for the public. To honor his peaceful Cornish life and simplify complex psychology, he wrote this as a sequel to The Wind in the Willows. A UK bestseller for 20-plus years, The Times called it warm and engaging, perfect for anyone considering therapy. Popular beyond Britain, its July 2020 Chinese release saw 24 reprints and 2 million-plus sales, proving Chinese readers love the book's 16 chapters fully depict the therapy process. Note: Heron uses transactional analysis, developed by Eric Berne in the 1960s to solve psychological issues through communication. TA holds that childhood shapes one's life, so therapists first help clients understand themselves through childhood recall before facilitating change. Since the 1970s, TA spread globally, with institutes in 65 countries, applied in therapy, business, and education. Now, let's set aside reality and join Mr. Toad's therapy to see how Heron uses TA to help him overcome depression. The therapy has 3 stages. First, preparing for psychotherapy. Second, understanding ego states. Third, rewriting life scripts. The riverside weather felt oppressive today. With nothing to do, Mr. Toad's friends Water Rat and Mole decided to visit Toad Hall. But when they arrived at the once vibrant, opulent estate, they found it in utter disrepair. Once radiant and spirited, Mr. Toad now looks gloomy. His first words were, "I'm not feeling well at all right now." Arranged by his friends, Mr. Toad visited the psychologist Heron. However, the wise Dr. Heron saw through Toad's distraction and unpreparedness with just a few greetings, so he decided to help Toad prepare for psychotherapy in 3 steps. First step, he needed to make Toad realize it was time for therapy. Unfamiliar with therapy, Toad believed it was only for those who had experienced severe trauma, thinking his own situation wasn't that bad. In reality, psychotherapy is a process where a therapist helps clients resolve various psychological issues. That is, whether you're feeling down, anxious, or irritable, you can seek therapy. The key is how to assess your own emotions, right? Dr. Heron had a solution. He drew a scale on a whiteboard, an emotional thermometer from 1 to 10, explaining that 1 means feeling terrible, even suicidal, while 10 means very happy. Then he asked, Toad, how do you feel now?
Toad marked between 1 and 2 without hesitation. Such a low score shocked even himself, and Heron preliminarily diagnosed depression.
Second step, Heron needed to address for whom Toad was seeking therapy. Sometimes depressed people see a therapist just to please others, as they struggle to think rationally and realize therapy is for their own good. Toad was like this. When Heron asked why he came, Toad replied, My friend sent me, Heron. Hearing this, Heron suggested Toad shouldn't come back next time. Heron explained that psychotherapy is always voluntary, requiring willingness from both therapist and client. He emphasized that only when Toad genuinely wanted therapy for himself, not to please others, could they truly collaborate. In other words, Toad alone must take responsibility for therapy, not anyone else. After a long pause, Toad finally agreed to do it for himself. Then he asked Heron a question. So, what should I do next? So step 3. Heron needed to set proper expectations for therapy. Toad habitually asked others what to do, believing responsibility would shift from himself to them. But Heron gave no advice, instead saying, I can't guarantee things will improve. Ultimately, it all depends on you. This depends on you revelation gave Toad a new perspective. For the first time, he realized he couldn't just rely on others. He needed to take charge. Toad finally agreed to collaborate with Heron to uncover the roots of his depression. Before ending the session, they confirmed fees, schedule, and frequency. Next session set for a week later. After Toad left, Heron reviewed notes and wrote his analysis.
He believed Toad, like many depressed people, had extremely low self-awareness.
Toad couldn't identify his feelings or their origins. He didn't know what he should or shouldn't do, living aimlessly. His self-esteem was low, unaware of his own worth. Thus, Heron decided to use transactional analysis, TA, to help him. TA aims to enhance self-awareness so people can make new life decisions. Experienced Heron planned 2 healing phases. Phase 1, help Toad understand ego states and optimize his best self. Phase 2, rewrite the life script causing his unhappiness and depression.
But what exactly is an ego state?
And what is a life script? Don't worry, we'll explain step by step, starting with understanding ego states. An ego state is an internal system formed by one's thoughts and feelings, and manifested through corresponding behaviors. This might sound abstract. Let's see how Heron helped Toad grasp it. Meanwhile, poor Toad sat opposite Heron, tearfully recounting his tragic past. He told Heron that when he disguised himself as a washerwoman and returned to his friends after immense hardship, their attitude devastated him. No one cared about his extraordinary experiences or the suffering he endured. Now, Water Rat accused him of being shabby and disgraceful. Badger scrutinized him with a stern gaze and asked, Aren't you ashamed? Heron listened quietly, occasionally handing Toad a tissue to wipe his tears. After Toad finished, Heron asked how he felt about his current state. Toad thought for a moment and replied, I feel like a child. When I was little, after being harshly scolded by my father, I felt exactly this way. Heron knew it was time for Toad to understand ego states. So he stood up and drew a diagram on the whiteboard. The diagram consisted of 3 circles. The first circle was labeled parent ego state. The second circle was labeled adult ego state. The third circle was labeled child ego state. Then he asked the bewildered Toad, Which of these 3 do you think you're in right now? Toad looked and hesitantly pointed to the last circle, the child ego state. Heron nodded and said, Exactly. This diagram shows the 3 ego states of adults, categorized from an adult perspective. All adults had parents and were once children. So when childhood situations recur, meaning current circumstances mirror those from youth, they either mimic their parents' behavior or revert to childhood reactions, and full and conceivable, like feeling childlike when harshly criticized. For instance, Encountering a subordinate who repeatedly errs might trigger parental behavior, making you want to scold them. Only by recognizing when one is in the parent or child ego state can an adult reclaim their authentic adult ego state. But for now, Heron planned to focus solely on Toad's current child ego state, leaving the rest for later. Moreover, the child ego state isn't about childish immaturity, but reenacting childhood behaviors with their original emotions in triggering situations. For example, under stress or confusion, someone might fidget with their clothes or bite their lip, just as they did when scolded by parents as a child.
Or, when someone gets questioned by their boss, they instinctively deny everything to avoid responsibility, just like when caught misbehaving by parents as a child.
In fact, when people enter the child ego state, their feelings and behaviors mirror childhood patterns regardless of actual age. Toad stopped crying. He sat quietly, lost in childhood memories. Then he asked Heron, "Why should I understand this?" Heron replied, "Because everyone's earliest experiences shape their personality foundation. Understanding childhood holds the key to understanding why you became depressed." So Heron suggested Toad recall more childhood memories, which he was eager to pour out. Thus, in the next session, he shared his childhood story with Heron.
Toad had a strict father who constantly scolded him, always shouting, "How many times must I tell you? Don't do that." So Toad gradually believed his father was always right.
He himself was always wrong. This mindset seemed to justify his father's criticism.
Toad's mother occasionally hugged him with affection, but during father's scoldings, she always sided with him. Father didn't mean it. Toad must have misbehaved.
Even after Toad grew up, his mother still treated him like a baby, making childhood discussions unsettling. Toad felt his stern parents stood behind him, ready to judge his actions. But recalling his childhood helped Toad realize why he'd constantly apologize and grieve silently when criticized by friends. He'd entered the child ego state. He also understood his avoidance of responsibility stemmed from lifelong dependence on dominant parents. It had become his lifestyle. After these realizations, the session concluded. Toad walked home along the riverbank. En route, he recalled Heron's attentive listening. This silent empathy gave him immense courage. Connecting with his childhood helped Toad understand his personality roots, bringing him profound comfort. So when Heron had him use the emotional thermometer earlier, he actually scored himself between 5 and 6. While waiting for the next session, Toad kept pondering his child ego state. But what exactly was the parent ego state? At the following week's session, Toad asked Heron, who explained, "Parent ego state doesn't mean parenting, but reenacting parental behaviors or feelings in triggering situations. If raised to obey, one might automatically submit to authority as an adult, while adopting the same stern, critical posture toward juniors that their parents displayed. Similarly, if parents were strict about punctuality, one might harshly self-criticize for lateness and feel intense anger when others are late." This instantly reminded Toad of Badger, his father's closest friend whom Toad feared most, always condescending, judging, and trying to control him. Just last week, Badger even tried to pressure Toad into resigning from the school board. Toad guessed Badger's parents must have demanded absolute obedience. Suddenly puzzled, Toad asked Heron, "If everyone has a parent ego state, where's mine?" Heron smiled meaningfully. He told Toad, "You do have it. It just manifests differently than Badger's due to your contrasting personalities. When Badger enters parent ego state, he criticizes others. But when you enter yours, who are you criticizing?" After a long silence, Toad realized, when in parent ego state, I criticized myself. He always felt less clever than Water Rat, less kind than Mole, less decisive than Badger. True, he mismanaged himself, spent recklessly, caused constant trouble. Thus he judged himself a failure. A key reason for his depression. No judgment cuts deeper than self-judgment. No judge is harsher than ourselves. Heron summarized, Toad certainly didn't want to replace his parents in judging himself forever, so he pleaded, "Heron, what should I do? Can you help me? Unfortunately, Heron refused again. He said the only person who can help you is yourself. Despite lingering unease, the deep self-understanding and Heron's unwavering support energized him. Back at Toad Hall, he noticed unusually vibrant colors in his garden. Realizing his mood had lifted, he thought, if Heron used the mood thermometer now, I'd score an 8. While awaiting the next session, he pondered how to help himself. Among the 3 adult ego states, the adult ego state remained unexplained. Perhaps the answer lay there. Returning with these questions, Heron was pleased Toad had become proactive in exploring issues. Well, so he explained, adult ego state means behaving as your present self. In this state, we're neither driven by parental voices nor haunted by childhood emotions. We rationally assess situations before deciding how to respond. For instance, when Badger demanded Toad resign from the school board, in adult state, he could have discussed solutions logically instead of feeling angry or insecure. Toad understood. Only in adult state can people think rationally or truly be themselves. Yet, he still didn't know how to enter it. He even resented Heron for not directly telling him how. Heron understood his frustration but instead asked, "Who's been upsetting you lately?"
Hearing this, Toad angrily blamed Badger, Water Rat, Mole, even Heron and his parents.
Heron cut off his rant, reminding him that blaming others is what people in child ego state do. So, what should someone in the adult ego state actually do? This question instantly calmed the angry Toad down. Yeah, is constantly blaming others any use? Should I make Badger or even my dead father responsible for me? A rational adult shouldn't do that. And suddenly, he understood.
Yes, he can take charge of himself. No one else decides his happiness. His emotions should be his own to control.
At that moment, Heron realized Toad was vastly different from his first therapy visit. He finally knew how to enter the adult ego state. He could finally recall memories without blaming himself or others. Realizing he could take responsibility, it seemed time to discuss rewriting his life script. Next, we move into the 3rd stage of psychotherapy. In the new session, Heron introduced the concept of the life script to Toad. Simply put, a life script is a person's subconscious plan for their entire life. Typically, a 4 or 5-year-old child subconsciously asks 2 questions based on life experiences. How do I see myself? Am I good? And how do I see others? Are they good? The child's subconscious answers to these form their life position, which they then use to write their life script. Toad seemed overwhelmed by all these concepts at once. To help Toad understand, Heron drew a cross on the whiteboard and wrote 4 lines in the quadrants. 1. I'm not okay, you're okay. 2. I'm not okay, you're not okay. 3. I'm okay, you're not okay. 4. I'm okay, you're okay. He told Toad that all life positions fall into these 4 quadrants. A life position represents the stance from which one perceives their own and others' basic worth. The first 3 positions are set in childhood. Once fixed, people stick to their beliefs in all life situations, ensuring their script stays on track. Toad frowned skeptically. He didn't believe someone writes their entire life script at age 4 or 5. So he asked, then how do people determine their position? Heron explained, young children, compared to omnipotent adults, feel clumsy and weak, so most unconsciously choose the I'm not okay, you're okay position. If parents remain cold and critical during growth, rarely comforting the child, they'll adjust to I'm not okay, you're not okay. If subjected to harsh treatment or abuse, children only feel comfortable alone, forming I'm okay, you're not okay, a position many criminals hold. People react differently to similar treatment based on personality. Like Toad, timid by nature, who blamed himself under parental strictness, keeping I'm not okay, you're okay. Whereas Badger, being independent and confident, believed others were at fault when treated harshly, forming I'm okay, you're not okay. While the first 3 positions form unconsciously in childhood, the final I'm okay, you're okay is a conscious choice made in adulthood by resolving childhood issues. For example, realizing your I'm not okay position stems from critical parents, lets you consciously reject self-blame when criticized, instead choosing I'm okay and rationally analyzing situations. Hearing this, Toad interrupted painfully. I always thought my parents were right, that I ruined everything. My life position must be I'm not okay, you're okay. Heron nodded with a faint smile, continuing. Once set in childhood, people choose psychological games to act out their life script. Toad looked utterly confused. What are psychological games? Heron explained. Psychologist games mean anticipating outcomes based on one's life position. Then, subconsciously, they'll find suitable people to cooperate in fulfilling this psychological expectation. For example, someone in the I'm not okay, you're okay position often plays psychological games like Poor Little Me or Ain't It Awful. And in Love Me No Matter What I Do, I know this might be confusing.
Do you remember your reaction when Badger tried to replace you as school trustee?
Toad replied, I remember being furious, feeling utterly worthless. I even impulsively wanted to resign, thinking it might be best for everyone. Heron nodded and said, but have you wondered why you often let others dominate, making yourself look foolish, despite your reluctance? I think it's because, subconsciously, you believe, I'm not okay, you're okay. So you invite others to play poor little me with you. If you enjoy our show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share the excitement with others. Every subscription is a boost of motivation for me to keep going. After this game ends, you always end up feeling weak and pitiful. The game's name itself reveals its inevitable outcome. Everyone scripts their own ending. Toad struggled with the game concept, so he asked Heron to elaborate. Heron had him guess Badger's life position. Toad recalled Badger's domineering arrogance. And finally, 1 month later. So he said, I guess Badger is in the I'm okay, you're not okay position. Heron was pleased. Impressed by Toad's quick grasp, Heron continued questioning him. Then imagine, if Badger booked a taxi that never arrived, what would he do? Toad chuckled, vividly picturing Badger's furious reaction.
He said, Badger would definitely rage and call to berate the driver.
Heron said, exactly. That's classic, I'm okay, you're not okay. People in this position love playing the game, I've got you now, you bastard. For example, if such people become bosses, they'll berate subordinates for minor mistakes or lecture them condescendingly because they easily imagine themselves as authoritative parents and subordinates as unruly children.
Their favorite phrases are, why do you always disappoint me? Or, I'm doing this for your own good.
Toad immediately thought of his father, who said these daily, realizing he and Badger shared the I'm okay, you're not okay position. As for himself, interpreting friends' words as mockery meant playing poor me. His reckless behavior while seeking forgiveness was inviting friends to play love me no matter what. At this moment, Toad connected fragmented memories of his growth. He saw how one event triggered another. He understood how certain people and events shaped his self-perception and worldview. He finally realized how foolishly he'd clung to and performed his hated life script. Back home, Toad first checked his journal. During his depression, it contained only therapy session notes. But now things were different. As his inner world transformed, he added lunches with Water Rat and cricket club meetings. Now he pondered how to fix Toad Hall's precarious finances. Perhaps it was time to sell Toad Hall and start his own business. At their final session, Heron brought out the emotional thermometer. This time Toad confidently marked 9. He said he now believed I'm okay, you're okay, withheld full 10 for future growth. Then, like a mature adult, Toad shook Heron's hand solemnly. Leaving, Toad gazed at the bright sky, thinking, what a beautiful world. As we conclude, notice how psychologist Heron remained an outsider throughout. He never emotionally suggested anything to Mr. Toad or labeled him, but remained calm and objective, guiding him step by step through questions and explanations to understand himself and unleash his inner strength. In reality, a qualified psychotherapist would do the same. Now, it's time to return from the riverbank life of the small animals to reality. Before ending, there are two more points to clarify. First, because psychological issues vary widely, treatment methods and theories are numerous. Even with the same doctor using the same theory, therapeutic steps differ based on individual clients. So, if your therapist uses a different method than described in the book, that's normal. Second, in the book, Mr. Toad completely overcame depression and transformed himself after just 10 therapy sessions. This was deliberately simplified by the author to help readers understand a complete therapeutic process. Real-life therapy can be much harder and longer. That's the main content we covered today. Has Mr. Toad's journey out of depression and self-growth moved you? In this process, though guided by Heron, ultimately Toad relied on himself. Dr. Thomas A. Harris, president of the International Association for Communication Analysis, firmly believes everyone can change. All can choose I'm okay. And you're okay. So, do you believe in your own power? All right, that concludes our interpretation of Mr. Toad Goes to the Psychologist. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.